as promised, we are talking NBFIRA, the Non-Bank Financial Institutions Regulatory Authority. And joining me in studio, such a beautiful feeling, such a great thing. I went to school with this man. How are you, my brother?
Good morning, Emoji. I'm good, man. It's good to see you. It's been a while. It's been a while,
man. Yeah. From primary, we went all the way to varsity,
and then you have those gaps in between because everyone is just doing life. But it's good to see you well, man.
Good to see you. You're well as well, my brother.
Yeah.
Kagiso Chabaki, he is manager fintech at NBFIRA, and as I already said, NBFIRA they regulate and supervise the non-bank financial institutions, right?
Yes.
That sector.
We say NBFIRA.
NBFIRA.
NBFIRA. Yeah. It's okay, man. It's okay. Hey, like you said, Tata, in short, we regulate or we supervise the non-bank financial institutions sector. Non-bank financial institutions, raba di company tse di hwebanga tsa madi me se di bank. So re bua ka bo insurance, we're talking about lenders, re bua ka ba di pension me go mpeno tebe re meletse mo ba bitswang go te di virtual asset service providers.
And so you've undertaken a public awareness campaign for them, right?
Yes. So essentially our key mandates, it's ensuring the safety and soundness of non-bank financial institutions. It's enforcing the highest standards of conduct within the financial sector, promoting fairness, efficiency, and orderliness in financial markets, and enhancing financial stability and reducing financial crime. But one of our key mandates also is consumer education and protection. And that's why we're here to try and raise awareness. But essentially, what are we talking about? It carries what kind of risks?
Okay, so it's all about educating the public on the definition and regulation of the local fintech industry. So it's only the virtual assets, Gary, so they fall under fintech?
Yes, they fall under the broad umbrella of fintech.
Okay. So when we are talking virtual assets, what are we talking about? And
in short, simple as I can put it, virtual assets are digital representations of value, right? They can be used for different purposes, payments, investments, and so forth. Essentially, if we were to break down the definition, virtually, a physical form of this thing, right? It exists entirely, right? That's what the virtual aspect means. Asset means something you can own, right? So essentially, that's the definition and the context here, what a virtual asset is. Different categories of these. What is generally used out there, right? The first category is known as asset tokens, right? Basically, these are virtual assets. Let me start with the virtual currency token.
Okay.
Yes. Virtual currency tokens are simply virtual assets that can be used for payments, trading, and investments, right? These do not have any underlying asset from which they derive value. Mo sepehela se leng gore re ka renya boleng ba currency bo be remeletse mo this particular asset or anything like that. Dikai, the big one, Bitcoin, is an example of a virtual currency token. The normal naming of these or usage of terms is cryptocurrencies, right? Those would be the category and the virtual currency token. Now, because they don't have any underlying underpinning value, they're not very volatile because they're subjected to modern demand and supply. How much are they willing to pay for it? So what you then get is it becomes very volatile. That's why we thought the Bitcoin $100,000 today, it's worth 90,000. So that led to the second category, the virtual asset, which is the asset token. Now, these are simply virtual assets that have or derive their value from an underlying asset. So, bolemba tembo remeletse mo an asset, another virtual asset, fiat currency, right, the traditional money we know, commodities like gold. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask about Bitcoins. You know, as a country, as a people, when you don't see something, you take a long time to believe in it, right? When we talk of things like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
In Botswana, are people already trading Bitcoin? Like, is it a thing in Botswana?
It's definitely a thing, and it's been a thing for a while.
Yeah.
I think in terms of even numbers and appreciation of the total market, would probably be giving an estimate, because there's a big usage that's still there with regards to unlicensed service providers. You know, people use the online exchanges, Binance, which are not licensed here. We'll get into the risks of using unlicensed service providers, but it is a thing. There are people that invest in it, they buy and hold, and wait for the value to grow. There are people that trade on it, speculatively and things like that. It's definitely a thing.
So we're talking virtual, right?
Yes.
And there's, I can give an example here, and you can correct me and guide me here.
No problem.
Something like an e-wallet. When I transfer money from, one person to another, and it's over the phone or it's over the laptop computer. Is that a virtual asset?
No, it's not. We need to draw a distinct difference between what is known as digital money and virtual assets, right? What you have in your mobile wallet, in your bank account, is simply a digital representation of the fiat currency or traditional money. 100 pula, you deposit it over an ATM, it goes to your bank account. 100 pula. It's still the money that you have that's issued by the Central Bank of Botswana. But when you talk about virtual assets, they don't have a physical form, first and foremost, and they exist on a special ledger called a blockchain, right? So those would be the key differences, and they're not issued or backed by any government, although there's a special category that we'll get into much later.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
At 7:30, Yarona FM Lift the Music, in conversation with Kagiso Mochabaki, the manager of FinTech at NBFIRA, Tato. It's not NBFIRA. We've been messing up here.
It's NBFIRA.
NBFIRA, and we are talking about virtual assets. More questions coming up, more information coming at you in a bit. Right now, though, let's find out what's happening in the news headlines with the one and only Tato. Remember, it's radio and climate change. What it means, we will get into that, and probably also talk to Fox, who is out that side in the ghetto to commemorate the day. So, Jesus Christ. Anyway, it's 7:35, in conversation with Kagiso Mochabaki, manager of FinTech at NBFIRA, and we are talking virtual assets and what they are. And just a quick recap there, Kagiso.
Yes.
Of virtual assets. Briefly, what are we talking about in case someone just joined us right now?
Virtual assets essentially right cryptocurrency. There are different categories, as we mentioned, but Bitcoin, the digital representations of value. There's no physical form of these assets.
So how do you regulate this virtual assets as well as the virtual service providers? And maybe before we even get into that, just the difference between the two briefly. Okay,
the virtual asset, think of it as, if I could give an example, look at a virtual asset as money, right? And think of a virtual asset service provider as a bank, right? So how you send, receive, make payments is facilitated by the virtual asset service provider or the intermediary in this instance, similar to what a bank would do. So the virtual assets are the actual assets, and the service providers are the ones that allow you access to buy, sell, and even store your cryptocurrencies. Yeah.
And how do you guys regulate them? And where do I find them? How do I find them?
Firstly, earlier, there is a prevalent use of unlicensed service providers, right? By law, they offer their services online and things like that. And to be honest, this is what makes a lot of unsuspecting Botswana susceptible to the scam, lady fraud, because you get someone on Facebook, I don't know, kereki saying. But on our website here, nbfira.org.bw, we have a list of licensed virtual asset service providers. That would be the best place to start. The first point is to say, do you have an NBFIRA license? Because essentially, how you hold a license NBFIRA, you're putting yourself at risk, because should there be something that goes wrong, it's a crypto, because crypto is stored in what's called a wallet, similar to how you'd have maybe your mobile money wallet. You have a virtual asset wallet. So there's no recourse in terms of how we then handle it, as opposed to how no licensing or regulator or supervisor. It becomes very difficult in that situation.
Okay, because I was about to ask that, in case someone or I get scammed, per se, is there recourse? So there's recourse when I've dealt with someone that's licensed and regulated by NBFIRA.
Yes, there's generally any unlicensed activity is illegal, right? And carries the consequences as stipulated in the Act. But like I said, it's much easier to assist you when you're dealing with a licensed entity than when you're dealing with some exchange that's supposedly based in China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask this. I'll ask it after this question. This one is from me. It's from me. But then, how do you regulate them, though, Kagiso?
Okay, firstly, let's just maybe iron out what a virtual asset service provider. So these people facilitate or carry out several activities, but I'll focus on three main ones, right?
Yeah.
The exchange between virtual assets and fiat currencies. Wa khona go reka di Bitcoin kana any other cryptocurrency, maybe le gape khona go di rekisa o bo hiwa di pula kana any other currency, US dollar, anything like that. The second is they facilitate the transfer of virtual assets. Ha ile ro batla go romella tshepiso 1 Bitcoin kana whatever, this is facilitated by what's called a virtual asset service provider, normally exchanges, right? The third is safekeeping or administration of virtual assets. Remember, the virtual asset wallet. You have service providers that provide these wallets, similar to how bank provide a bank account. Right. So those are essentially the virtual asset service providers. Those are the key activities they carry out. Regulator.
Yes.
This now encompasses our whole supervisory model.
Yes.
Firstly, licensing, we do the licensing of virtual asset service providers. And I think it's also to indicate that there is a special category in what we regulate. It's known as an initial token offerer, right?
Okay.
Initial token offerer, I can liken it to what we know in the traditional markets. Go stock exchanging. MOG and Co. Ba dira IPO. It's called an initial public offering. Bantadia betaboni dia ko Botswana Stock Exchange. So an ITO would be the mirror image of that, but more the cryptocurrency markets.
Right.
So essentially that the person is issuing, you could be issuing tokens against equity in your company. So when I MOG coin, Trump head is, but we won't get into Trump. But yeah, so we do the licensing of virtual asset service providers. It's a VASP. So we do the licensing of VASPs and initial token offerers. And then we do use different tools. It's a supervisor to monitor the activities. We have on-site and off-site monitoring. We go for inspections. They have returns that they submit and we analyze. But generally, in terms of the broader aspects of the sector, we promote investor education. We publish notices practices, guidelines, and bulletins and policies regarding interpretation, application, and enforcement of the Virtual Assets Act. And we develop rules, guidance, and codes for practice in terms of the constraints in which these entities can operate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up our conversation, there, Kariso, my question now. So, Tato has invested this amount of money in cryptocurrency. You know, now they're buying a football team. Now they're buying Yarona FM. So I'm there. I'm like, okay. So if this is virtual, how does it translate into me being able to buy Yarona FM, or how does it translate?
Good question.
Yeah.
Like I said, you are able to basically exchange your virtual assets for fiat currency, right? Or what we would call real world money. So let's take Bitcoin, for example. Bitcoin has been around, I think, since around 2009. So at the time, it was probably, the value was, I think, maybe just less under $1, right? Since then, right now, we're looking at the value of Bitcoin. Last I checked was averaging around 100K.
Yo.
So if you had bought Bitcoin in 2010, let's say at around $10 per Bitcoin, and you had held it until earlier this year, it even went to just over 105,000. Basically, you would have been able to create that kind of value in that space. 100,000, it's like what, 1.3, 1.4 million?
Somewhere there, yeah.
So that's one Bitcoin. So imagine someone had bought 10 at a time. There's actually well, it's not a joke, it's an actual thing. There's an interview of a guy who bought pizza. I don't remember if it was for 2 Bitcoin or whatever. He had 2 Bitcoin. He wanted pizza. The pizza place was taking Bitcoin. Now it's like the laughing stock of the market to say, damn, I don't know if I can say that, sorry. But it's simply to say, you really could have
kept that money.
Exactly.
Kept that money.
But yeah, that's how these things happen. You know, you get people invest in these things, the value exponentially grows, and they're able to then encash these for real of traditional currencies and be able to then make these huge purchases.
Man, we have more conversations coming up over the next couple of weeks. I think we'll get into more questions, but that one I needed to understand. So I just need to deal with people that are regulated by NBFIRA.
100%.
So that I can invest in cryptocurrency and Bitcoins and all of that good stuff, right?
100%.
Just in wrapping up, man, any last words, and obviously how we get in touch with NBFIRA?
Yes, I think we will continue to go deeper in terms of, you know, the uses, the risks, and virtual asset, and then the use cases as well over the next coming weeks. But I think it's important to emphasize Kenya knowledge and information. You know, we have access to just about anything these days. You're just one Google search away. So whatever products that you're looking to buy into, because every market has its own risks. But like Rebule, you know, Botswana especially, we've seen a ridiculous amount of scams over the last few years. People have lost fortunes. So it's really important that before you take a decision to invest or partake in a particular sector, take time to understand what it is, the risks, and what you need to do. And in terms of reaching us, they can call us on our lines that we have 368-6100, 368-6100. We have 310-2595, 310-2595. And as I mentioned, our website, nbfira.org.bw. And also, we are very active on our social media platforms, Retemo Facebook, Retemo Instagram.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Abaki, Manager FinTech at NBFIRA. Thank you so much, my brother.
Thanks for having us, man. Thanks for having us. I hope it was an insightful thing. Someone out there learned something, and these platforms we have more information that if you want to know more, that we can come to our offices. We have a brochure that can basically give you all the information you need to know, the frequently asked questions and things like that.
I got educated. I think for the first time before today, I just thought Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, it's stuff so Taco States. I didn't know it's a thing that I can do in Botswana. So I'm excited to engage in more conversations and learn more. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Have a good day, and good day to your listeners too.
Awesome stuff.